Well, hello and welcome back to Gato 2021 Digital Gaming The Next League. My name is Sriraj Deshmukh and I will be your host for this session. Welcome to the next session on how will edge network evolution impact gaming. We would like to begin by thanking all of you for being a part of this conference, and we would like to thank our partners. The title partner, Games 24 by 7, powered by AppsFlyer, in association with Trackia, Platinum Partner OnePlus, Content Delivery Partner Limelight Networks, supported by Invest India, and Knowledge Partner Red Sea. Without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Raghav Anand, Segment Leader, Digital Media and Convergence of Africa, India, and Middle East at EY, and he will be the moderator for today's discussion. Joining us today, we have a distinguished set of leaders. Please welcome Mr. Charley Thomas, Director of Solutions Engineering, APAC, Limelight Networks; Mr. Abhijit Pattanaik, Co-founder and CGO at Playtonia; Ms. Saumya Singh Rathore, Co-founder at WinZO; and last but not the least, Mr. Jhawar, Senior Vice President, Mobile Premier League. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the Q&A section, and the panel will address a selected few at the end of the session. Now I would request Mr. Anand to take over. Thank you.
We appear to be missing our moderator.
Yeah.
I guess he got disconnected.
Sure.
Just give us 2 minutes. We're checking with Mr. Raghav. He's just joined. We'll just put him on the stage.
Yeah. Few of the technical difficulties every time, sometimes it happens.
We got a lot of live.
Yeah.
Usually it's just somebody trying to find the stage, but now we've got a whole new set of difficulties we've got to go through with COVID and everybody doing everything remote.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. There
you go. They put everybody on stage except me, so I think that helps. Okay. Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And I think this is exactly what we are trying to avoid with Edge Network, I guess. But all that said and done, thank you very much. Great to have everybody here. And wonderful to have a panel which is like an eclectic mix of somebody from an integrated gaming side, also a platform which is looking to sort of saddle gaming into the depths of India, and then esports, and also having a rounded perspective from somebody who's providing the entire infrastructure and support. So welcome everyone, and really great to be part of this panel today, discussing something that's really in the edge of discussions as far as where gaming is going. So just to sort of set the context for everyone listening in, edge computing is nothing new to the market. It's already something that is going through the roof, 3.5 billion by 2020, going to almost more than 15 billion in the next 5 years. So edge computing is making its presence on various things, on video, on the way movies are being made, on the way the entire processing is being done. But the edge of the network coming into gaming is creating complete shifts, and which is what we are here to discuss today, on how this entire movement of computing to the edge and the edge network is making a difference in gaming. Uh, and to start off with, probably I would want to then get some of these perspectives on how it is affecting different parts of the value chain. So maybe, and it's great to then have Naman here, who saddles in NPL the entire strategy, and they work across the field, right from the platforms to fantasy gaming to casual to beyond. Naman, probably to start out with you, how do you believe the entire computing moving to the edge is affecting gaming, and especially for you from an integrated gaming company perspective?
Yeah. No, thank you so much, and glad to be part of such a diverse and amazing panel, right? So thanks, Raghav. I think the question is quite relevant, and we are seeing some really fundamental technological shifts prevalent to gaming industry, especially around the computing side of things. Um, Mobile Premier League, has been around for a while now and pioneering the entire concept of esports and gaming globally, right? And what we are trying to create is a very, very unique, large-scale, massive tournament experience, which is global in nature. We just went live with our third country, which is US, and you can imagine. I think to operate in such a diverse global geography, you need to create seamless experience for our users. Multi-geography, multiplayer experiences with really, really low latency is a theme that we are pursuing from a technology infrastructure perspective as well. Of course, the current available technologies around cloud, around low latency CDN networks are enabling us, but that mobile is a device of choice, for a lot of consumers in India, and of course some of the other geographies also that we are operational in with respect to Indonesia and US as well. So yes, advent of 5G and this marked shift in terms of computing technologies are only going to create a more seamless and low latency experience for our users. That's one part of the story. I think what we are also now embarked on is a whole different set of users who are passionate about viewing competitive gaming also, right, as one big segment that is kind of emerging, and you do see a lot more content play that is emerging out of the esports side of industry. And that itself also requires a very good seamless networks computing technology as well. So the primarily, if I have to talk about how does this impact us, I think two or three big themes. One, around the multiplayer, multi-geography, competitive massive tournaments. Second, around the entire content distribution across the globe in a real time on some of the gaming tournaments. And third, I would say is more to do with with respect to just the player experience around preventing any kinds of in-game cheating or in-game fraud. You need networks that support computing algorithms that can detect any kind of in-game cheating, etc. Right. So these are three big, I would say, focus areas that will really help us, with the advent of new computing technologies.
No, brilliant. I think that sort of opens up the areas of impact, right from somebody looking to sort of go across the global to looking at massively multiplayer environments and being able to do that seamlessly, which used to be the bastion of the large publishers because it needed a lot of computing power. And then the other important point which you made, Naman, was very interesting, is how do you curb fraudulent play right at the edge, and that all not coming into the leaderboard, essence of actually being fair gaming from that point of view. Very interesting. And that, in fact, Naman also mentioned a couple of other things, which is where Saumya, I think what you guys are playing in would throw a lot of perspective. When you start taking this as a platform, and also start taking this across India and beyond, taking to the users who are very mobile centric, tier two cities and beyond, and so on and so forth. How do you see some of these issues playing out, and how do you see the edge network helping from that point of view?
Sure, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me on this panel, and good morning to everybody. As a just a quick introduction, so that we kind of context how it is very relevant for us. WinZO is Bharat's largest vernacular social gaming and entertainment platform. And when I say that, we're pretty much one of the first, players in the Indian market to challenge the traditional in-app purchase and subscription model to monetize gaming assets through a microtransaction-based monetization model that assures 100x revenue for absolutely any game that is onboarded on WinZO as an alternative source from day one. Um, we have around 50 million registered users as of today, playing in 12 plus languages from very, very deep parts of the country. This audience is really the mobile first audience. We facilitate around 10 microtransactions per month, which basically means that by the time which baseline 1,000 microtransactions, right? Time. When I that one has to really solve at a very low cost real time or near real time or nearest real time gaming experience. When I'm saying that, that the margins of running a business could be very, very low, right? And hence heavy computation costs to actually bring the real time gaming experience could actually make a business model like ours not really viable. When I say that, I also mean to say that, hey, we need to ensure that bandwidth is saved. I also mean to say that, hey, there's privacy that has to be solved. I also mean to say that, cheaper, faster computation could actually make gaming layered with what is today present as a lot of facilities such as video along with gaming, audio along with gaming, more real, engaging, and entertaining quality, right? So bringing all of that to end user, and end user, when I say, is 500 million people of Bharat, right? Connecting through very deep parts of the country, maybe not the best network, maybe not the best devices, and when you plug that with saying that, okay, we are able to bring the best experience to the end user infrastructure that they could be consuming this from. So that's what it means for us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, uh, it is very, very interesting the way you mentioned that, when you take this to 500 million people in Bharat, everything that we are talking about, whether it is latency or whether it is computing power, and even you mentioned privacy for that matter, all of this is a big concern, and you are indicating that the computational power not staying on the mobile but on the edge makes all the difference from that point of view. So fantastic, that's great. But when we are doing this, and it's good to have those two perspectives. One is going global, one is going pan India into tier two. But when you're doing this at an esports level, Abhijit, that's when it becomes really, really critical, right? It's no longer one-to-one gaming. It's sports. In sports, we understand the difference between few microseconds can make a winner to a loser. And when you're doing that, and you have to be fair across multiple people, and also then have a few billion people watching, how does this play out in esports, Abhijit?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks everyone and thanks all the panelists. And So I come from a core esports background, and mostly our company Playtonia provides its expertise on esports as a service. So we not only have a esports platform to engage almost millions of pro gamers who are dedicated gamers who work on their skill level and stats, but also have a solution to broadcast those professional content which is generated by them to billions of users all around the world. So we do it through multiple streaming and OTT platforms. So in this both the cases, latency and bandwidth plays a major role in it. Mostly, like when players are playing, yes, as you said, a microsecond, like difference can make a headshot as a missed shot as well. And in terms of remote broadcasting, when we are distributing our content to multiple countries and all across the world, that time one not even milliseconds, like it has to be 0.01 less than that millisecond also to get or receive the content from them, as well as mix it up, make a meaningful output of it, and then send it to them. So it all happens very minutically and without any lag or without any, the best experience which comes after that is to the viewers, and that makes emerging, you can say, experience for them, which they doesn't feel that, okay, they are sitting in Ukraine or they are sitting in Dubai and watching a gameplay happening in India. So that is the power which is required, and that is what we get from Edge Network right now.
Right. So that means that whether we are, that puts esports at the same pedestal as any other sports broadcasting, because then you have multiple people playing. It's fair. It's all synchronized, and then you can stream it and broadcast it to multiple people from that point of view. All of that calls for. So this is great, and I wanted those three perspectives before I came to you, Charlie. You might be delighted hearing all the things that you're hearing so far, because all I'm hearing is people across the board, whether they are a platform integrated company, esports, saying craving for that edge power on the network, and then saying, if we could have that, we could make a big difference. When you look at it from a point of view of providing and supporting some of these largest networks across the globe, how do you see it, and how do you think somebody like you would be supporting all of these things?
Thanks for having me. That's a great question, and actually maybe back up a little bit and talk about kind of how we got here, right? So Limelight as a company, we work with all the console manufacturers from the gaming industry for years. So we've been around more than 20 years. Historically, gaming was more about just sending out massive amounts of data. Well, that still exists, right? When you do an update to a lot of your games, you still have to move lots of data that goes out. What's really changed with compute is the limitation before was how fast can the new latest generation console go out? When is the newest graphics card coming out? When are the new devices coming out? How much can you put onto the mobile device so you can separate and have people gaming on mobile devices? With edge compute, you can put a lot of that processing and 5G. You can take a lot of that processing and put it at the network. So this removes that limitation of I need to put out a new console, I need to put out a new phone in order to support new features and get the interactivity. So from a cloud edge company, this is really exciting because this allows companies like what we have on the panel today, right, to really innovate and come out with things and not have to wait the cycles that it takes to push out new content. The other thing it does is it allows companies to take a look at different ways of monetizing their content, right? You see now, what they talk about is gaming has changed, right? They're gamifying everything, right? Videos being gamified. I live in Tokyo, and I'm trying to learn the language, and it's a game, right? There's apps to learn, and there are games to teach you new languages. So everything you can do now is a game. So, and most of that is done by having an interactive experience, and you can only do that if you do some computation out in the edge.
Right. So what essentially that means is we're moving on to a completely different paradigm where the computing is happening on the network, and the companies have to just innovate the way they use that power. and create new experiences. But that brings us to the question you also touched upon 5G, right? And probably then I would want to throw this back to Saumya and then probably back to Naman to say how does this work when we still have a predominantly 4G network, and even when we have a 5G network, this is a country which has the spectrum, shortages and so on and so forth. Now that we have lesser telecom people, but all that's when we have more subscribers. Uh, this entire paradigm of network power vis-a-vis the computing power, right? And when you look at India as a geography or a mobile-centered geography, anything similar to India, what are the issues you face? How do you think this is really applicable in an emerging country from that point from now?
Hi. Sorry, I've just put off the camera because I'm getting this
Yeah,
reconnecting message every now and then, and just in the interest of ensuring that we still have the efficiency of this panel going on.
sure, sure.
Um, right. I think it's a very pertinent question, especially given that while we are talking about 5G and bandwidth, which is evolving, we're still talking about the larger masses, especially when we are talking about Bharat, which I define very differently from India, right? Bharat is very deep parts of the country. People who are connecting to smartphones for the first time, their mobile first audience. They're coming from cities, towns, villages, sub villages, where um, bandwidth is really a privilege that we're talking about. And then when you talk that um, with a real time social interactive gaming as a product that you are taking to them and solving really as what the product claims that you need to solve for it, then well we are not really then saying that the reliance is going to be on 5G as a network. Then we are talking about something which has to be far more evolved. Yet it has to be something which I mentioned again. In the first time I spoke about how it is relevant to WinZO, we are also talking about the cost and efficiency of the solution that we are talking about here, right? When we are taking the solution as a business to the end user. And I think that's where edge computing becomes really, really relevant for an audience that we are trying to solve for. That is on lots of fancy devices, is not connected to the best network. Latency cannot be, a product experience because we are almost operating as a high frequency trading terminal where there's a microtransaction happening every single second. Response time of a user is really a microtransaction. And when we're talking about all of those things, we are basically talking about low latency leading to greater response time, right? Irrespective of the bandwidth that's available to you, or at a decent bandwidth. Let's not say irrespective of bandwidth, but yeah, at a respectable bandwidth. Let me put it that way. And when we're talking of that, then the reliance on something like an edge computing is, or applicability rather, is heavy to bring what we say is a real time experience of gaming with audio, with video, with seeing reactions, with clocking monies along with the response and the reaction. It's so relevant that I think I can't express enough how relevant it would be in a business like ours. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, Soumya. That's great because that what that means is that again, the way we look at the business itself would be completely different when we look at ecosystem depending on the network. Like you said, Bharat is different from India, and how do we look at that? And Naman, just extending that question, would that mean that we are looking at geographies not in terms of geographical boundaries, but in terms of how the networks behave? And to say, when you say similar markets, it's India, Indonesia, because of the way the networks are and the computing power vis-a-vis some other countries like Japan and Korea or something like that, for that matter. How do you see this when you go across the globe, and when you also go deep into India from that point?
No, absolutely. I think you're completely right in terms of it's probably not geographical boundaries, but technology boundaries, if I can call it right, and extending it to even I would say even in cities you'll have consumer segments that are optimizing for low cost devices, cheap data plans, and that's again like a big consumer segment that we look to cater to because if you see for India, the grassroots are kind of developing from that segment, right? And you are seeing a lot more engagement, and there's a lot of hunger in terms of, especially on the esports side of things, for this segment to get recognized to play at the highest level, right? Unfortunately, the devices of choice continue to be, I would say, low in computing power, and data itself is while it's drastically reduced from the times that at least in 2016, we're now almost at close to about 10 rupees a gigabyte, right? That kind of a data rate. It's still, I would say, experiences in a very high fidelity games like battle royale or more AAA games, they do require heavy computing and a lot of network usage as well, right? So those are real problems that potentially is in a way challenge for this segment to kind of go and be big and like sort of show their mantle at a more global level. If you see their counterparts, maybe in a USA or a Japan, I mean, predominantly the device market is more iOS, right? You're talking about 50-60% iOS market. Even the Android phones are a much more high price point phones, right? And of course, data was a given thing in these countries, right? So if you are to create multi-geography, multiplayer, seamless experiences, then this device inequality has to be bridged by, in some case, cloud computing and also 5G networks, right? Which will enable that. Okay, the device of choice is not the issue in terms of me performing, well in a large scale tournament versus the other geography player. So that's where I see, in terms of it, bang on right, Raghav, that it's not a geographic, I would say inequality. It's more of a device, user segment, price points, that inequality that is right now. Technology can really bridge well.
Right, and that's an interesting thing that you said, Naman, because we've all been used to those old days, and I call it old days, not been so many years back, but when you used to port each game for each different mobile device and the screen sizes and so on and so forth, porting used to be a large business. 300, 400 people sitting out of India porting games for the entire world. Now we are talking about a scenario where you're agnostic to the network, to the computing power of the device, and then try and do that. But now, maybe again, just to extend that, and also because as a panel, if there isn't a bit of a controversy, there isn't a discussion, right? And if we all seem to agree on many things, but on the revenue model itself, and that's where I know there are different takes on this. How does that enable a company such as yours and beyond to innovate on the revenue models, especially in a context like India and beyond, where in-app purchases have been less, but across the globe, in-app purchases are completely 80-85% of gaming. There is this entire game to earn kind of a real money kind of a scenario versus a different model. There is subscription as a model. How do you see revenue models from your perspective? Then I'd probably want Abhijit to also chip in to understand how does he look at revenue model, because he runs an esports from that part. But Naman, how do you see some of these revenue model innovations there?
Sure. So, Raghav, I think last 2.5 years, you've seen some fantastic innovation, of course, happening on the monetization models in the gaming industry. Yes, of course, in-app purchases globally, if you see, dominated the market to a certain extent, ad revenues as well. And in India, it was primarily the go-to monetization model, right? Which meant that a lot of developers, because of the high CACs that are kind of required to build an initial liquidity in a game, the business itself was not sustainable. And you continue to basically publish a title, put CAC on that, and then try somehow to kind of break even through an in-app purchase and an ad revenue. That, of course, fundamentally, getting some background noise. So that I think did fundamentally change with play to earn models that got innovated back in 2017-18, right? And of course, Mobile Premier League was also one of the pioneers of competitive gaming with a play to earn kind of a model. That was a second leap that was taken. I think the third leap that I clearly see with another big technology that is kind of hitting us is which is blockchain. And till now, the asset ownership in any traditional big AAA title was limited to a contract between a developer and a user, right? What you are seeing possibilities now are, I could own an asset which I could probably earn it while playing a game, but I could also trade this with another person. I could also kind of combine a few assets to build a new digital asset, right? Because all kind of in a way, operating on a non-fungible, technology as well. So that's again a big leap that is going to be out there, right, in terms of a new monetization model that is coming out. Coming back to technology, though, if you have essentially now most of the game computing and sort of the latency and bandwidth on the cloud, there is definitely there's going to be some impact that you can see possibly in the console and PC side of things, or even like more expensive devices that require some amount of client side networking or computing to be done to kind of have those kind of experiences, which basically definitely means that cloud gaming is going to become a reality. And in that aspect, if even if I see more from a not for play to earn but play to fun kind of an environments as well, you would see more Netflix like subscription getting created where your favorite titles can reside on a cloud, and whenever you want to play, plug in and you can play and really create like multiplayer sort of system as well. I think the last bit around, I would not say monetization, and there's still to kind of see how that shapes up, but there's definitely a hardware layer that is kind of getting created because of this, which is the entire AR and VR side of things, right? The more packets that you can transfer in a network, you will create AR VR, which is right now the form factor is not supporting in a way that can create like a more smooth experience, right? And that itself may have a potential of a new monetization model developing, right? Whether it's a combination of maybe a hardware subscription to a rental to whatever you call it, right? I mean, those possibilities are also out there. But yes, I think there's only a starting. I think this play to earn is becoming a reality, and maybe that is going to be there in the next 2 to 3 years. But going forward, subscription, maybe AR, VR based, cloud gaming also becomes a reality in the future.
Oh, again, very interesting. Thanks for that, Anand, including the fact that you talked about actual NFT and trading of assets, which opens a completely new model from that point of view. But again, Abhijit, esports is similar but slightly different, right? Where do you see the revenue models getting innovated? Is it more subscription gaming? Is it more, it might be just participation fees, which is driving the economy at this point in time, right? So how do you see some of those revenue model innovations there?
So I have two things. Not only the esports, there is a single player market as well, which is they also call themselves as gamers, and they are. So those games are actually very high-end graphics enabled, and it needs a lot of data consumption. So why I'm telling this, back in 2016, when for one of the publishers there was no servers in India, and we tried creating servers in for India in different locations. So we had it in Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, and Kolkata. So most of these server infrastructure where we are spending, and that time I'm pretty much sure that we are not so much aware of edge network, and we are trying to create that server chain of servers where people can connect, and with very low latency they can choose what servers they can choose. And whereas the publishers servers are giving for example 64 tick, which means like 64 kilobytes per second can happen, we are giving 128K. So we're giving a better experience, like how you have 2K or 1080 pixel and 4K experience. Similarly, they were getting better experience in our servers. So because of that, there are like people who migrated from the publisher servers to our servers to experience or play around with their friends and all. On top of that, there are people who are mostly single player concentric, and all these single player games are not free to play. They are very much costly, something around the 2000 rupees or more than that. So to having like 100 GB of data downloaded on top of like you are paying something amount of that, it creates a lot of people not to go for that. And as Naman said, like people because of the smartphone penetration, maybe it is a low end smartphone as well, but because of the smartphone penetration and the internet usage has been increased, people are willing to play other games as well, and most of the mobile games are free to play, and they are going on that phase. But how they can play the high end games like Hitman or any other single player or esports games, how they can play. So now because of this cloud gaming thing, if 5G and coming, and with that the Nvidia and the new cloud gaming systems are coming, they are going to create a subscription model where you just have to pay 500 rupees or something per month, and you can play all the high-end games in that. And they don't have to spend more than 1 lakh rupees on a system, or they don't have to spend for a high-speed internet on their PC, or they don't have to also buy those games. So all these together, they're going to get into a very affordable price. So low-end devices and a minimum subscription model, they can go for it. So I think like with the emerging of 5G and the edge network, I can see a lot of subscription-based thing, whereas the cost which is people are spending on the hardware will decrease.
No, great. I think that's a good perspective. I think the cost of the hardware decreasing, but the computing power increasing on what's available to the audience means for the first time in India, from a gaming point of view, the lines between what is a high-end PC game or even a console game versus what was mobile was largely a casual product is going to change. And traditionally, whenever I used to open a gaming debate, I would say, is this relevant for a console? Is this relevant for a PC versus an online mobile? I think no longer will be relevant a few years down the line. But all the things we are hearing, Charlie, here, AR, VR in gaming, 5G coming in, we're talking about intensive, massively multiplayer games. Two questions to you. One, is the edge network really ready to support all of this at this point in time here and globally? And second, how easy or difficult is it? Is it very capex or opex intensive, or is it something only for the big boys, or is it something where the local developers, and even I heard what Abhijit said with a lot of interest, him saying a publisher globally providing a 60 FPS versus them providing a 120 locally here. All of these things, A, how ready are we from an edge network perspective, and B, how easy is it? Is it only for the big boys or also for the commoners from that point?
Well, so I mean, edge computing is very capital expensive, right? So if you were to go out and deploy a network that reached a global audience and can reach, so we talk about a lot of these events, especially esports, right? You see, MPL will see this too, right? When you have events, you have massive spikes in your network that need to be supported. If you are doing this yourself, that means you need to build your network for the biggest that it could possibly be, which is where a network like why you use a compute network, right? So you can use that capacity as you need it instead of having to build it all out ahead of time. I mean, if you think of it like any business, right? If I was building widgets and if I wanted to do it all myself and I had to go and deliver that product myself, I'd have to go out and send it, and I could only deliver to the stuff that's right around me. If I want to go global, I'd have to buy factories and warehouses everywhere and be able to deliver to them. It's very expensive unless everybody's at capacity all the time. If you use a compute network, you pay for the services you use, you've got global reach, you can get off and running right away. So, is there a time when you're small and you're only delivering a small micro network right around you? It's that window of being able to do that and have any kind of sustainable business is very narrow. The reality is you need to start thinking about that early. Most most development is done in mind that you want to be big. So it usually gets developed to be able to go out to a large audience. Now, whether that's just in India, and we've seen a big shift, right? We talk about monetization. I would say before we saw most companies in India were kind of looking at India where they were trying to distribute to all the different regions within India, which is complicated as it is, right? Enough languages and there's a layer of complexity. But we've seen a big shift to an India out, where many companies in India are really trying to get out to other markets. And this opens up to them the ability to explore different kind of monetization strategies. So maybe you monetize in India with ad supported, which is what kind of the expectation is. I hear, all the apps on for mobile are free. That's in India. That might be the case. But if you look in Europe, or if you look in the US, in Japan, Korea, many of the applications that you actually download, you'll pay for, or you'll pay a subscription for. So by going to a global audience, not being reliant on your own infrastructure, using a pay-as-you-use model, it opens you up to be able to explore not just a only India strategy, but really a global strategy. I don't know if you can do that on your own. There's probably a dozen companies out there globally that have enough business and enough steady state utilization that they could do all of this on their own, where it would make some amount of sense. But for the rest, it makes more sense to use a service that can get you out there, let you focus on building your widget, and then use a platform out there to do your compute on the net in the edge.
Brilliant. And I think this is such an interesting discussion. It's a bit of a shame we're almost running out of time. But then to pick up something that you said, Charlie, which is very interesting, which is India going to the globe, right? And that means that it is enabling a lot of companies to now look at the globe as the playground, and not look at it as successive, progressive expansion, but as to sort of start out and start playing across the world. So I think it's a good round off to say that edge of the network is opening up possibilities with respect to A, the game going massively multiplayer, B, with it going across boundaries and geographies, going across different revenue models from that point of view, and also increasing the immersiveness in terms of AR, VR, and the kind of things that the audience can do with it from that point of view. So, few closing remarks, Naman. Do you believe the next few years are going to then be a plethora of opportunities with 5G and everything coming in? How do you see this? Is this really something which we should look out for from a gaming perspective? How do you see the next few years panning out?
No, I think I can't be more excited, right? Because we are definitely at an inflection point out here. There was, of course, the 2000 that created Web 3.0, and then we had the next decade, which was which created some really amazing companies out of that, and then we had the mobile in 2010, and that did create another set of disruption, right? I think we are entering now, a completely new decade with some really, really amazing technology, whether it is computing or distributed ledger or AR, VR, and on top of it, models which are truly, I would say, groundbreaking. Whether you talk about in gaming, there are talks of metaverse getting created. There are talks of course, as we've already spoken about the new monetization models. And on top of it, I think India is kind of writing a story in a lot of sense, right? Whether it is platforms like us and WinZO as well, or you have basically publishers or developers that are kind of so that till a lot of time were finding a little bit hard to even monetize, sustain, are now finding these platforms to get linked to. And then kind of globally distribute and monetize their apps outside, right? And hence, so that ecosystem is developing very well. You're seeing a lot more talent that is coming in this industry because of these inflection points, right? You're seeing reverse migration happening from Valley. A lot of, I would say, as I said, right, like 2020 and beyond is one of those inflection points where a lot of things will come together. There is investment scenario also that is looking very, very good for the industry. all of these things are pointing in the right direction, that in the next 5 to 6 years, we do see a, if not more than, 100 or 200 billion dollars, but $1 trillion kind of a, industry getting created in the near future.
Wow, that's something to take away. Almost $1 trillion industry getting created. It's no means that we're seeing gaming getting. We ourselves have been dabbling. I mean, in the last 4 months, like I said, Naman, we've worked on more than 8 plus stuff on the esports and gaming stuff. So there is a lot happening across the globe. Abhijit, you see the same spike in esports? How do you see the next few years panning out because of the Edge network?
Yeah, definitely. I'm with the same thing, but I want to add one more mega point, which I think, as a gamer, I have been seeing a lot of people outside India or outside of our region because of the gaming. I got connected to them because of the gaming, but because of the Edge network, which will enable us to play all around the globe in next few years or next few months. So what exactly will happen is we will connect to different cultures as well. So for example, I'll just give you a small example. Like in India, if I have to play a game, I will select my Indian server. If somebody wants to play in Japan, then they will join Japanese server only. They cannot get to me anyway, because I won't be any part of that. But if our widget can make use of Edge network and connect me to a Japanese gamer, and my widget will only calculate which server is best for both of them, for me as well as that Japanese guy, then they both can play on that same server, where they don't have to select anything. They are getting connected to different people and understanding their tactics and culture as well. So that's become a bigger point of view for me, because as a like this pandemic situation, nobody is able to go anywhere and do anything. But this is the place virtually they will meet people abroad as well.
No, great. Absolutely. That's a great roundup. In fact, I'm already feeling a lot older now, because I remember the old days when you have to log into a different chat server to chat with different countries for that matter. It's all coming back again. But the future is very exciting. That's what I'm hearing from different people, whether it is WinZO as a platform going for 500 million people, Naman saying it's $1 trillion business. And obviously, I'm already seeing Charley lapping it up, saying there is so much to go in terms of opportunities, and how somebody can latch on to a Edge network on an OpEx basis rather than try and create all of that. And all of that means a lot more of esports. So great, wonderful thing. And there is a lot of exciting things to look forward for. And I think the only thing we're going to fall short of is time. But really exciting, guys. And thanks everyone for joining in. And each one of you has given a completely different perspective. Shiraj, from IMI's perspective, big thanks for hosting something like this. A really interesting topic. And you couldn't have asked for more in 45 minutes. But thanks a lot. Over to you, Shiraj.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for an engaging discussion. And a special thanks to all of you for taking out time and being with us here today and making this possible. And also another thank you goes out to all the attendees as well who are here with us today. Thank you so much, everyone. I would request everyone to stay tuned to all the attendees, as the next session will come up soon. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. Take care.